Hello, welcome back to my channel, and firstly I hope you had a good week, and I hope it hasn't been, anything less than you deserve. Apologies firstly for the lateness of my video, because it is a little bit late. I didn't mean to do it late. I was supposed to upload on Thursday, but I've been busy, I've been doing one thing or another, and I haven't had the time. So apologies for that. Secondly, apologies for this and the way I look today. I'm a bit of a mess. I know I need to go and sort my hair out and everything else, but I've been out for a walk with my dogs and stuff, and oh well, whatever. You didn't come here to watch me, to look at this anyway. You came here to listen to some spooky stories, which is what I'm going to deliver to you today, I hope. What I'm doing a video about this week is psychic mediums, and psychic mediums, one in particular being a member of my family. Yes, she was well known, especially in America, and I find it fascinating because it's my family history and stuff. So anyway, I'll stop waffling on about it, because you don't want to hear me talking about it right now, because we're going to just roll the tape. Come on, roll the tape, man. My great aunt was called Rose Gladden. She was my nan's sister, and she was very gifted psychic medium and spiritual healer. She was very famous around the world and very well known in England and America. She started healing when she was just 19 years old. She was born in Edmonton in London in 1919. And one day when she entered a dry cleaning shop in London, she found that the owner was slumped over the counter. He was in much pain because he had an ulcer. Although Rose didn't know quite what to do, she heard a voice telling her to put your hand here. Along with the voice, a small light appeared over his shoulder and floated down to the right side of the man's stomach. So she placed her hand on the light, and she felt an unseen hand covering her own. And with that, a great heat developed under her hand, and she couldn't pull her hand away. After a few minutes, a man told her that the pain had gone. This was when she realised that she had the gift of healing. She had been having paranormal experiences since she was very young, probably around 7 years old. My nan told me that she used to talk to people that weren't there, that they weren't there, she couldn't see them. And it used to scare my nan because she didn't understand what was going on. But then you would, wouldn't you? Because if you was a child and your sister was talking to people you couldn't see. As an adult though, Rose used to see people who turned up at her house. There was always someone in her house wanting her help with either healing or medium skills. She used to be able to see someone's aura, which she described as the protective circle of light and colour surrounding each human being, and she could tell ill health through someone's aura. One day, she found she could also see silver spots and lines all over the surface of her body. It was not until some years later that she realised that these were points and meridians used in acupuncture. People often described their symptoms to her, but she often felt their trouble was not where they thought it was. She often saw the real trouble pinpointed by light. I'd put my hand in the light and the pain would go, she said. As I've been told by both my mum and my dad, Rose used to shock people with her spiritual mediumship, as well as her healing. When my mum was a young woman, she pestered her Aunt Rose to read her fortune. Rose refused on many occasions, but one day she agreed. Asking for my mum's ring, Rose held it in her hand, and after a few moments, she told her that she'd meet a man with the initials JJ, and he'd be in the forces, and they would marry and have 4 children. My mum thanked her, but she didn't really believe it. Until a little later. My mum was 18 and she was out with one of her friends, where they met some young men. When asking the man who liked my mum what his name was, she was shocked when he said that his name was Jack Johnson. Now, this was a thing. His initials were JJ, but she was even more shocked when she found out that he was a Royal Marine. So, indeed, he was in the forces. My dad laughs now though, because he says if my mum would have told him that she was going to marry a man with the initials JJ who was in the forces, and then they were going to go on to have 4 children, he would have been scared off. Anyway, my mum and dad carried on seeing each other, and after a very short time they got married. They went on to have 3 children. But soon to be 4, when they took in my cousin when he was found left as a baby, and they looked after him for a fair few years. So they did indeed have 4 children. So Rose was right about everything she told my mum that day, and I wish she was still alive when I grew up, as I'd love to have met her. Rose used to channel spirits, and she did this once when my mum and dad were both there. She was sat at a table and she channeled her spirit guide. He was apparently an Indian man with a headdress on. And slowly, they both saw her face and her upper body change into this man as he spoke. They also saw her make things move without touching them. One day, around like when my dad first sort of met her, he was quite sceptical, and she gave him her photo, a photo in a frame of somebody who'd passed away. She told my dad to take the photo into another room and watch him move. My dad laughed and went off with the photo, and he sat down on the bed in the room and stared at the photo, and not believing that anything was going to happen, he was just looking at this picture thinking, this is a load of rubbish. And then all of a sudden the man's chest started to move up and down as if he was breathing. He couldn't believe his eyes. Now this was like way back when, so there was no such thing as all the things that you can make happen nowadays with I don't know, the digital photos and stuff like that. There weren't anything like that back then, so he couldn't actually believe his eyes. And then since then he never disbelieved Rose again, and which to this day he swears he saw it, and my dad is not a man to make anything like that up. Anyway, after getting advice and guidance from other psychics, she steadily developed her gift until she became one of the most respected, genuine and successful healers in Britain. As she got more attuned to her gift, she travelled around the world, being well known in America and Canada. She lectured to top medical specialists as well as to members of the public. She took part in tests and research undertaken by professors at several American universities, including Stanford and the UCLA. University of California devised a system where she was wired up to a patient who was a boy with very serious nervous disorder, just so that they could record what took place during the healing process. I am willing to submit any test if it helps to people to understand, Rose had said. Now, Rose was a sensible and practical woman. She was full of all sorts of advice. She once told a conference of nurses that they must be sure to treat the dead with dignity, as they often stayed with their discarded bodies for some time. She would also give patients advice on how to avoid repetition of their problem. And Rose knew that many doctors were not interested in her form of healing. She was nevertheless always quick to point out to the patients that healing is not a substitute for medicine, it's only a complement to it. Now, there was a young boy called Andrew Buchan who was 10 years old, and he was from Hitchin in Hertfordshire. He was totally paralysed, partially deaf, dumb and blind because of a brain tumour which was inoperable. But he made a full recovery due to faith healer Mrs. Rose Gladden. Throughout her time, she was known as one of the most outstanding healers in the world. Her list of friends and supporters both in America and the UK was huge, from treating the likes of brain tumours, cancer, through to conditions such as arthritis and slip discs. She had a success rate which was outstanding. She had a healing centre in Letchworth in Hertfordshire, UK, and also the Rose Gladden Healing Centre in San Francisco in the USA. This was a charitable organisation that relied partly on donations and worked in cooperation with the medical establishment. She was also planning another healing centre in Denver, Colorado, and another in Sussex in the UK. Now, not like many healers, Rose was quite unique because she was able to channel healing energy to one patient whilst giving a clairvoyant reading to another at the same time. Now that's talent, isn't it? Because she was also known as well for her Cockney sense of humour, because, you know, at the end of the day she's a Londoner. And she was brought out into her treatment rooms, so all of her patients were always smiling. And she also used to bring loads of cups of tea as well, so, you know, it's a proper British thing. Now, some powerful healers such as Rose Gladden, with whom did many demonstrations at events such as Britain's annual festival for mind, body and spirit. These demonstrations were never set up beforehand, because Rose would choose someone from the audience as a patient who, she said, had a black cloud over their head. Someone she perceived to be in need. This usually meant like anxiety, because the person chosen would often show very minimal response at the beginning of the demonstration. But they should have had more faith, because Rose, as discovered, would choose only someone that she felt needed help. And then the change in the patient's response confirmed this. So confident of her own genuine abilities, Rose allows scientists from the UK and from America to subject her to like loads of tests over the years, and all of them produced outstanding results. Less known was that she specialised in helping and training others with psychic awareness to understand and develop their gifts, which is something that I wish that I could have learnt from her, because there's so much my mind is quite open with so much stuff. I would have really benefited from someone like her, and I think she would have been an amazing teacher. She used to always also perform exorcisms to clear bad spirits, as part of her work was dealing with cases of spirit possession, which obviously not everybody believes in, but Rose knew that people weren't mad, and she performed her work to help people. Now, at the height of her fame, she appeared on television, both in the UK and in America, and in numerous books, publications and newspaper articles. At that time, she was spending 6 months of a year doing healing and talks in the UK, and the remaining time in the US doing lectures and healing demonstrations. A report from the Comet paper dated the 9th of the 10th, 1985, about the world-famous faith healer Mrs. Rose Gladden said, Mrs. Gladden, aged 65, who faces a tragic personal battle against Parkinson's disease. Mrs. Gladden and her husband Peter, 53, opened the Rose Gladden Healing Centre in their home in Norton Road in 1977. However, Mrs. Gladden, despite a health setback, will still continue to offer her healing service by telephone. She's also writing a book on her life. The newspaper cutting is accompanied by a press photo showing Mrs. Gladden healing a patient. Now, Rose was born on the 27th of December 1919, and she died in February 1991. She was an amazing woman and deserves all the recognition I'm giving her in this episode. So I know now why I am so in tune with all things spiritual. It made sense to me as soon as I found out more about Rose years ago. I think I could open myself up to things as I experience all of manner of things, and I have done since I was quite young. So I'm just really sort of in awe of this woman. She was amazing, and she was a member of my family. She was my great aunt, and for that I'm quite grateful, really, you know, to know that she was doing such great things, and she helped so many people over the years, you know, with her healing and her spiritual mediumship. You know, she done so much for people that this is why she was really liked around the world, because she was known for being just wonderful, I suppose. What other word can you use, really? Now, one day maybe I might look into like trying to find out more about opening yourself up to more things, you know, because I think I've got it in me, but I just haven't looked into it. I suppose that's the way of going about it. But I know that obviously this is all in our family, so you know, it's a thing. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. So there you have it. There's a little bit of family history of mine, and a little bit about my family member. So I suppose, like, you know, it's something I've learned different things about her and about how she worked, and I hope you have too, and I hope you found it interesting and you didn't find it too boring, because I know, you know, when it's obviously about my family member, it's interesting to me, but it might not be so much for you. I hope that isn't the case, because I truly hope that you enjoy my videos, to be honest. Anyway, I'm whiffly waffly on again. I hope to be back to normal next week and have my videos updated and uploaded, on time, not way behind like they are this week. I didn't mean to. It's just been busy, you know, and stuff, and the weather has picked up, and I just couldn't not go out for a nice long walk in the woods yesterday and today. So yeah, so there you have it. So yeah, next week should be, you know, back to normal. Let's hope. Anyway, look out for my shorts and stuff on YouTube and on my socials, and I'll see you again very shortly. Take care of yourself, keep smiling, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next week. Ta-ra.